Welcome, everyone. I'm Charles Payne in for Neil Cavuto. Nearly 12 million people still unemployed, and those folks could soon have a lot more competition for jobs. A new report showing the Senate immigration plan would flood the jobs market with 1 million foreigners a year. 1 million! Oh, and they're going to be looking for work. And critics are saying we'll be all looking for bigger jobs mess than we already have. To Melissa Francis, Tim Phillips, Ford O'Connell, and to help us sort it out, and Melissa, I want to go to you first because, a lot of people have been saying, can we get our own house in order before we open the floodgates again?
You know, I'm not sure it matters because the only type of jobs that are available in this country right now are for highly skilled workers. I mean, if you don't have an engineering degree or a computer science degree, or if you aren't a highly skilled mathematician, you can't find a job anyway. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense to bring in a lot of people that are going to be competing for the low wage.
If they came in and they couldn't get jobs, we'd have to feed them, clothe them, give them health care. And again, we're not necessarily fixed very well to do that either.
No, that's absolutely true.
You know, Tim, it's interesting that Melissa would mention that because I think of all the people coming in, at least from what I've seen so far, we still have some pretty strict restrictions on those people that could fill those STEM jobs, those science, technology, engineering, and math jobs.
That's exactly right. In fact, there was a report out I saw this week that the visa applications for high-skilled employees have already been reached for this year. So the economy does need those folks. Melissa's exactly right. I would caution that whenever there's an issue like immigration being debated behind closed doors, you're going to have either members of Congress or staffers who will leak stuff. Sometimes it's an axe to grind. Sometimes it's a trial balloon to float. I just think it's important not to hyperventilate over one story that doesn't really have sourced people to it. House Republicans have said, look, whatever happens in the Senate, we're going to do a regular order in the House, which means subcommittee hearings on judiciary open to the public, the full committee hearings with markups open to the public before any vote potentially could ever occur in the House. So that's why I'm not, one story like this is not something to get too breathless about.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, but Ford, here's the thing, trial balloon or not, we kind of understand that this is sort of along the administration's agenda, something they would like to see, a bigger influx of foreigners. And again, I just don't think the country is fixed well for that, to handle that kind of influx. What do you think?
Well, I think we have to take it slow with immigration reform. As a fiscal conservative, I was for immigration reform long before it was fashionable for Democrats or even Republicans to do it. I think we got to strike the right balance with respect to the visas, because the idea here is to increase productivity so as to grow the economy, so as to have more jobs. At the same time, though, we got to avoid a situation that leads to higher unemployment, lower wages, and greater government dependency.
Well, that's just it. We talked about that, Melissa. It's
yeah.
like... I guess the interesting thing is, though, we actually have had fewer people coming to this country than in the past, in part because of our economic situation, which you talked about.
I guess, it is discouraging. At the same time, I mean, people would make the argument that these are people that are here, that are coming here anyway, rather than trying to stop it. We should be taxing them. We should have them contribute to what it is that they are taking out of the economy. Maybe they become consumers down the road. Any way you slice it, we need more skilled workers in this country, and we need to train our own unemployed people to learn to be skilled workers and to fill the jobs that we have open.
That's a point, though. It's interesting. So where do we put our efforts in? In other words, can we say, hey, listen, we want to sort of, slow down immigration so we can focus on getting people who part of this permanent underclass. We look at the jobs numbers. We know how many people have been unemployed for 27 weeks or longer, and that's a crisis.
But, it goes back to personal responsibility, and we talk about this all this time. I mean, I'm a parent. I'm going to look at my two sons and say, look, there are jobs out there that are going begging in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you are interested in these things and they look like they are at an early age, you should go out and get trained in them. I mean, if you're someone who's unemployed, you have to look at the jobs that are open and look at how you can retrain yourself to fill those jobs. We all know waiting for the government to do something is going to leave you starving in the long run.
Tim, and I know you're not too alarmed just yet, but we do see the trends and where they're going. Let's just say, throw a number out there. Maybe it's not 1 million. What if it's 500,000, 750,000? It's still a whole lot, a huge influx. And particularly as the country's going through this transition, we've got the new health care law coming on. That's going to be a doozy. I mean, we know it's going to hurt a lot of people, and it's going to be very expensive to implement, very complicated. At some point, do you think there's a political will down in Washington to put the brakes on immigration or slow down a bit?
I have a lot of confidence in Senator Marco Rubio. I do. He's a conservative, free market leader across the board. I don't think he's going to sign on to anything that is out of control. I have confidence that in the House it'll be a thorough review of anything that's happening that comes out of the Senate. I know that's going to happen. There's going to be a regular order there. We're going to have a good, long, thorough debate on this. And I tell you, the biggest threat to American workers isn't a foreigner taking their job. It's the fact that no jobs are being created under the current economic circumstances.
Exactly.
We're not getting any of the government overspending under control at the rate we have to. Obamacare's provisions are going to be an additional drain. We got the EPA and so much of the other regulatory apparatus of this administration that are choking off innovation and job creation, and that's the biggest threat front and center.
You
I think immigration reform.
I mean, that's what everybody should be focused on right now. That's what everybody in Washington should be focused on. How do we grow the economy? How do we get people back to work? That should be the number one issue, and you just feel like they've sort of thrown up their hands and said we can't do it.
Go ahead, Ford.
Well, to that point, though, one of the big things out there is certainty and making sure that small businesses create that. And we promote the idea of the knowledge worker going forward, because essentially productivity is the only way we're going to get out of this mess to expand the economy.
Hey, Ford, I want to ask you, because you talked about your open-mindedness earlier. I've met a whole lot of conservatives, and I know a lot of people in the Tea Party, and this immigration issue seems to rub a lot of folks the wrong way, and it feels like often they may want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. In other words, we've already talked about how important it is to fill these STEM jobs. And sadly, we don't have enough Americans to fill them. But from what I've read, there's up to 2 million of them vacant at this very moment. Can we allow the Einsteins to come into this country? Will the GOP be okay with us allowing a few Einsteins to come into this country? Or will they be against that?
I think that if we can find the right balance between the visas, border security, and the pathway to citizenship, you will see the GOP lead the way right now. My biggest concern is that President Obama is trying to force this down their throat and essentially try to guilt them into a bad bill that's going to really create more government dependency. At the end of the day, what the GOP is looking for is higher wages, lower unemployment, and people getting married. Marriage creates strong families, and strong families create strong economies.
Real quick, Melissa, we're all looking for that, but I mean, this jobs report really is a reminder of so many different things, a malaise, if you will.
So many things. I mean, it was abysmal. 88,000, that is nothing. You look at 500,000 people who dropped out of the workforce in March, who just threw up their hands in the air and said, forget it, it's too hard, I'm not going to find a job, I'm not even looking anymore. I mean, there are people out there in the mainstream media pointing to that tick down from 7.7 to 7.6, saying things are getting better. That's a lie. It's not true. It's that people are discouraged and they've dropped out.
That was very disappointing as well. Let me tell you the number that scared me the most, just so you know before I let you go. 350,000. That's how many people quit part-time jobs. If you can quit a part-time job, something is wrong in this country. Guys, you were fantastic. Really appreciate it.